The Motoz Tractionator Adventure tire. Is this overrated or is it the perfect fit for your bike? Well, I'll give you my impressions of this tire. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my channel. So I have the Motoz Tractionator Adventure tire on my bike right now. And when I had looked at a number of reviews before putting this tire on, and I've watched a few after, there's just this sentiment that this is the best tire you could possibly put on your adventure bike. And the reviews that I've seen have all been glowing on how awesome this tire is. Well, it is a good tire, but I have to disagree with some of the reviews that I've seen, because there's been some things that have came up in my experience on this tire that if this is something you're considering, you really need to know about it. And I haven't seen anybody else, maybe I just haven't seen the right reviews, but I haven't seen anyone else talk about some of the deficiencies that I have found with this tire. Now, with that being said, it is very good, and I will talk about the good parts, but I think if this is a tire you're gonna put on your bike, there's things you need to know. So let me just start off by telling you, I have about 5,500 miles on this tire. I've taken it off twice. I took it off last fall going into winter because I wanted a more road biased tire to get through the winter. And then I put it back on in the spring, and I ended up getting a puncture, and it was a really big nail. And I put a plug in it, but I didn't put the tire back on right away. I put it on later. And in all that time of the riding that I've done, it has approximately 5,500 miles. Now I've ridden, oh boy, 10, 12 sections of BDR or Continental Divide Trail on this tire over that time. I put it on in California when I was doing a longer trip, and hit some of the California Northern BDR or the Northern California BDR with this tire when it was brand new, and then rode it all the way home. So it got some pretty good amount of road wear on it. It is an incredibly hard compound. I don't know what the durometer reading is. And this tire new has a really deep tread. It's probably one of the deepest I've seen on any tire. So, I mean, that's good for longevity, but because of the hard compound and the deep tread, there are some issues that I think if you're going to use this tire, you need to know about. My road experience with this tire is it took somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 600 miles to feel like I had scrubbed it in, and it stopped slipping. Those first 100 miles, even just straightaway pull-offs, accelerations from stoplights, not even under that hard of acceleration, I could feel this tire slipping, and then my traction control was kicking in. I actually put my riding mode into the urban because it has the most traction control on it, so that it wasn't slipping, because I could feel it slip in my other modes. So if I had like a rain mode on BMWs, I likely would have put my bike into rain mode for several hundred miles because of how much this tire slipped. So straightaways, it was slipping. If I was making a left or right hand turn from lights, I could feel it slipping. And then when I was carving corners, or not carving, but riding up and down canyons, I was incredibly careful. And it took hundreds of miles for me to build confidence that this tire wasn't just going to slip out behind me as I was riding. And then after that 500 or 600 mile, what I would consider break-in, and that included dirt road riding too, to kind of scrub it off. It was still, I think because of the rounded profile, it took a while for the knobs to kind of bed in. It did take 500 to 600 miles before I started gaining confidence in this tire. But from that point up to about the 5,000 mile mark, it was fine. The other thing that I found now that it's getting lower and I'm beyond that 5,000 miles is the traction now is going away again, and I'm starting to get more slippage. If you ride with a lot of pace, you know, you might experience some slippage with this tire like I did. So with that being said, the road experience has been, it's been adequate to get a lot of miles out of it, but some of the slippage that I had, not happy with. One of the things I want to mention about this tire when it's on the road is I have ridden it in rain, quite a bit of rain over the period of time that I've had this tire. And I have found that this tire does slip in the rain. and definitely have my traction control fully active. It was, I keep saying, you know, when it was in the break-in period, but even throughout the entire life of this tire, in rainy situations, I was getting some slippage out of it. And maybe it's just me, maybe it's the way I ride, maybe it's the bike, I don't know. But it is something to be aware of. If you're gonna be riding this in the rain, keep in mind, because it's such a hard compound, you may experience some slipping on the wet roads. So let's talk about how it does off-road. Off-road experience on this tire. It's kind of been hit or miss for me, and I know a lot of riders really, really love this tire, but I have found that when this was new, not only was the road break-in having some slippage as I was doing that, but I actually found when this was brand new and the tread was super deep, that I was sliding off camber stuff, which I didn't expect. Now I was riding the Northern California BDR, I think it might have been section 3, and when I was riding it, there was a very powdery, talcum powdery section there, and as I was coming in, I could feel the rear end just continually sliding off of the hill. And I wouldn't have expected that. One, that the tread was extremely deep, brand new tire, I had like 50 miles on it, and it wasn't catching, it kept slipping off, and I didn't expect that. Now, as the tire is worn down, I haven't experienced that quite as much, and it could be a function of two things. One is the tire is very round when you get it, so I'm not using the full contact area of that lug until it wears down. I think once that lug wore down to where I'm on the entire flat section and I'm catching all of the edge there, it held a lot better. Now, and it, you know, after that time of, and I couldn't even tell you how many miles it was, probably the 500 or 600 miles that it took for the break-in, maybe close to 1,000. Then it really started giving me the traction that I wanted. But that initial break-in period was pretty dramatic in how it handled, and not what I expected, and not what I've experienced out of other knobby tires. But once it got broke in, it was fine. It held its line. And since that point, I rode Hagerman Pass a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of off camber, and you can see the guy that I'm riding with, that I caught up with at some point before going up Hagerman, on his KLR with the tires he had, you see him slipping off camber in a couple of spots, and he was having to put his foot down and had some issues braking. I didn't have that problem. This bike held the line, and no off camber slippage. The other thing that I found initially when it was new is that it was really easy to break loose too. Times where I didn't want to lose traction, I wasn't trying to lose traction, but once it wore down, that behavior went away. Now, at this mileage, at 5,500 miles, I have noticed that it is wearing down enough that it is breaking loose again a little bit more easily. Not bad. But the problem that I'm running into now, and this is typical of any tire, as it wears down, what I'm running into is this tire is starting to lock up more on just very mild dirt roads. When I apply rear brake, I'm finding this thing locking pretty quickly, because in the off-road mode, I have no ABS on the rear, don't want ABS, but now I'm experiencing it locking up pretty quickly, which I don't like, especially if I'm going down very steep terrain and I'm using compression braking, pedal braking, and then also front brake. You know, having that tire lock periodically, then I'm starting to lose my line, and I might slip a little. So I have to be much more careful now that it's more worn down. And I'll show the depth of the tread. I think it's, I can't remember, it's like at 8/32. I don't know what that is for millimeters. There's still depth left on the tread, and it's perfect for day rides and running around. If I'm doing a shorter trip, you know, like an 800-mile trip, I could easily run this for those extra 800 miles and get that distance out of it. But I'm going to be doing some longer travel coming up here in the next week or so, so I'm likely going to end up having to take this off, and I'll set it aside and maybe put it on later. But I think also because I have a plug in the tire as well, and I've been using that plug for several thousands of miles, it's probably time to go ahead and pull it off. The reviews that are so incredibly positive that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this tire, and that this tire is perfect in every condition and does everything well. I think it's overstated. The conditions that I've ridden this in has been on, you know, I've ridden a little bit of mud, not a lot, and it's done fine. It cleans out okay. There's going to be slippage. I don't ride fast through mud because I don't want to end up on my side. Through the talcum powdery stuff, sand stuff, it's paddled through that just fine because it kind of has like a paddle type shape to it. So it digs through the sand, and the talcum powder stuff was fine. No issues there. Rocky terrain. I've been able to get up everything, and it digs and grabs traction in really rocky terrain. So from that standpoint, it is performed well. Over Hagerman Pass, I only had one issue where coming out of one of the water crossings, going north to south, there's a pretty steep gravel hill going up, and I got stuck on there, and it was digging really badly, and I ended up having to roll all the way down and get a little bit of a push just to get rolling up, because it was digging in that gravel. It's kind of one of those things that if you don't have enough momentum, then you're going to get stuck there, and that's what happened. So I think off-road wise, it's an adequate tire. I don't think this tire stands out above other tires as far as off-road performance, in my experience, in the tires that I've used. It kind of comes down to personal preference. The cost of this tire is quite high, and because of the cost being quite high, whether there's value there, it's really hard to determine. Because it's such a hard compound and it lasts a long time, there's value there, but there's the break-in period, and then as it's gotten to the end of its life, now it's starting to slip again on the road a little bit, and the lockup issues. So it's things that I haven't experienced on other knobby tires that I've used. All right, final thoughts on this tire. If this is something you're interested in or wanting to see a little bit different take on it, is I think it's a completely adequate tire. I don't think this tire stands out above any others. And I haven't ridden every single tire out there, but in contrast to the knobby tires that I have used, I don't think this thing performs better than those. I think the life of the tire is good, but it comes at a compromise with the break-in period. And as it's gotten older, it's back to slipping again. And I don't know, it's a pricey tire. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this tire, but I wouldn't discourage anybody from using this tire. And I really think with every tire out there, you need to see if that works for you, because your experience on it is likely going to be different than mine. And I've said this before in other tire reviews, that the same tire on different bikes is going to perform differently. And the same tire for you on a different bike, or even the same bike, depending on how you ride, may perform differently. You may really love this tire. It certainly gets a lot of mileage, but you're going to pay some money for it in order to do that. I don't know that I would purchase this tire again when there's some other less expensive options that I really like. It was a point in time where I needed a tire because I was traveling and I had to rely on somebody else to get the tire for me. And I was just, whatever they could find, I was going to take and put it on. It didn't matter to me. So that's how I ended up. I wouldn't have necessarily, if I had the time and I was able to shop for tires, choose this tire. But my experience on it is it's okay. It's like I said before, it doesn't stand out amongst any other tires. There are things that are good about it. There are things that are bad about it. It just kind of balances out. So anyway, I know this is a bit longer ramble on this tire and my experience on it, and I know it's not going to be congruent with all of the other tire reviews that have been done on this tire, because my experience on it is not the same as what everybody else's has been and how much they've raved about this tire. I think it's okay. So anyway, if you have used this tire, let me know what your experience has been on this tire and what bike you were riding it on. I also think it's important to know if your bike has traction control, if you use the traction control, and if you've experienced any of the slippage on road and any of the slippage off road that you didn't expect. So yeah, let us know in the comments below so others can take a look and get an idea of whether or not this is a tire that's worth using on your bike. Now, one last note, and I will probably have already put this in text before. I was usually running around 34 to 36 PSI. I know that the carcass on this is a bit harder, so I wanted to keep the tire a little bit softer so that it would form to the trail, but not so soft that I would get into the rim. So anyway, that just to give you some context to where I was at. So remember, you can always make more money, but you cannot make more time. So get out and do that ride you're thinking about. Wear out your tires, try out different tires, go places that you didn't think you could go or have always wanted to go. Get out, do some riding, ride safe, and I will see you out there. Test, 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 test.